So, Kemi Badenoch, as you can see on your screen right now, did a speech the other day about the European Convention of Human Rights and the problems with migration. And I was like, I was going to cover it on stream. And then I realised that I actually just don't fucking care. I literally do not give a single shit what Kemi Badenoch has to say. I don't think anyone else does, right? I don't think anyone really cares what Kemi Badenoch has to say. So this is what the segment's going to be about. I'm not actually going to react to the speech or talk about what was in the speech, right? It's just some stuff about how immigration policy has failed under the current government. They said they smashed the gangs. They haven't smashed the gangs, of course. No one's tackling the real problem, which is we need offshore processing and safe and legal routes. We need all of the different ways we can mitigate this by removing the demand for people smuggling gangs. But whatever it is, that's by the by. Like, honestly, I'm sick of talking about it. You all know my opinions on this by now. But what I think is really funny is that no one cares. Like, no one's voting Conservative. No one cares what the Tories have to say. No one has any interest in what Kemi Badenoch does or doesn't do. In fact, like, Kemi Badenoch was specifically apologising for how bad she's done as Tory party leader and then she'll get better. And I'm like, no, she can't get better because she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. She doesn't know what people care about. She doesn't know how to campaign. She doesn't know how to speak to normal members of the public like a human being. Like, of course no one cares what she's saying, right? It's just words. I was looking, right, at the Sky News Sunday programme last week, right? They had Zia Yusuf on, they had Robert Jenrick on, and they had someone from the Labour Party. And basically nobody watched the video by Robert Jenrick. And this was just after, a couple of days before, that Robert Jenrick had done his kind of viral video about the social contract and people skipping the turnstiles at the London Underground, right? People not paying and skipping the fare. And Robert Jenrick can go entirely viral, and all people want to talk about is Reform versus Labour. All people want to talk about is Reform versus Labour. Now, I've done a whole video about why the Tories are cooked, and I would definitely recommend people going and watching that at some point in the future. But just kind of broadly, there's no interest from the public about what Kemi Badenoch has to say. There's no interest at all from what she actually has to say. It's probably not unique to her in the whole gamut of the Conservative Party's leadership. Time after time after time, they're asked about what they would do, what they think is going wrong. And their whole response is just, well, we would be more right-wing. Why did you fail? Well, we weren't right-wing enough. I'm like, people wanted better social services, better public services. People wanted to have a funded NHS. And you failed on all of these things. And then when you're in opposition, you're banging on about the Chagos Islands and shit that no one cares about. Like, it's obvious that they're not going to be winning. And no one pays attention. No one cares what she has to say. And like, how many people have even watched this speech? 21,000 views? I mean, it's more than like you'd expect. It's about a pretty touchy subject, right? But even so, like, you look at the comments on people saying, those who believe the Tory bullshit from 2010 to 2024, never again, right? The top comment on here is people just saying, never again to the Tories. And literally the second comment, because she's a black woman, is mocking her for being a migrant, saying that she mugged the system to obtain British citizenship. Literally people are in the comments just doing racist abuse of her because she's a migrant herself. In her speech that she's got here to talk about migration, right? It's not a tactic that's going to be winning the hearts and minds of Reform UK voters, you know? There is a gaping hole for people to do the kind of one nation paternalistic conservatism, and that may be the one strategy that the Tories could use to regain voters, but they're never going to get it aping the Reform voters that are mostly eating into the Conservative Party's base. And it's funny because we're going to talk later on about the whole Zia Yusuf debacle and him quitting and then coming back, all that kind of malarkey. And I think a lot of the coverage about that has been, oh well, Zia Yusuf whole departure problem shows you that the Reform UK brand is tarnished and that it's a farce and that it doesn't really Reform to be a serious party of politics. No one fucking cares. No one in the public cares. No one cares about the internal political drama of Reform UK. People want solutions. People want change. People want there to actually be change that was promised by Labour and that they never delivered. Like, the idea that there is room or space or any future for establishment parties during a time of terminal decline is for the birds. No one cares what Kemi Badenoch has to say about anything. Anything at all. I think it's a real kind of problem that we have with our political system in that there will be continual coverage of the Conservatives, despite the fact that in some places they're in 4th place polling. In the under 50s, they're in 5th place. They're a political dead end. But because they are the established opposition, because of the seats they have in Parliament off a very small sector of the vote, because of the split elsewhere in how people voted at the last election, they continually get coverage that is totally fucking unwarranted. On Laura Kuenssberg's show tomorrow, we have Chris Philp and Jeremy Hunt. One on the panel, one being asked questions, right? Just why? Why are we hearing from these people? Why can't the Tories just kind of die peacefully? Just go away. Just go away. Admit that it's over. Just admit that it's over. That's the thing, right? I mentioned in my piece about her on Novara Media that it's not just a problem with Kemi Badenoch, it's a problem with Conservatives at large, because it's a real problem with the membership and the culture of the Conservative Party, that in a time of terminal decline where the people who are deciding elections are poor people, the people who are deciding where people vote actually for the first time in quite a while has been the poorer sector of the electorate rather than the richer ones who decided for a very, very long time before in elections for the last 45 years, really. It was retired and rich homeowners who decided elections, and now it's the swinging voice of working people nowadays, the working poor in this country, especially since the middle class has been kneecapped by corporate overreach. People don't trust the Conservative Party, first of all, because they're in bed with the corporations who are doing the corporate overreach in the first place, that are devouring the wealth of middle class people in this country as we see it, as Gary Stevenson well points out. So these people are now floating voters in the way that they weren't before, and pretty solidly in favour of whatever the establishment party was at the time. The number of poor people is growing every single day, and these people are now getting politically energised by reform, winning over a lot of non-voters as well. And on top of this, the culture of the Conservative Party is such that they can't speak to the issues of normal people because, newsflash, Tories aren't normal. None of these are normal people. It's a party entirely comprised of privately educated people, people who have worked in massive businesses, and this is not just true of the politicians, it's true of the membership as well. And that's a key thing. That's a key difference between Reform and the Tories, is that whilst the Tories membership is full of posh, privately educated people who join it as part of a dynasty a lot of the time, right? You do it because your parents did. You look at people like Brewdog person girlfriend, that absolute witch, right? She was saying, well, my parents are Tories, I've always been a Tory, I was brought up a Tory, right? It's dynastic politics, and it usually is down the line of very kind of posh, well-off people, you know, who are part of the Tory membership, and the politicians too. And so they're totally divorced from the struggles of working people in the modern day and age, so there's no one left to vote for them, as you see in the polls, other than the retired who vote for them entirely out of habit. And because they own their houses, they didn't get stung by Liz Truss because they weren't paying mortgages, and they'd already cashed in a lot of their pension, so the drop in pension provision from the Liz Truss mini budget didn't really affect them as much as everybody else, right? But that demographic's going. That demographic is dying out. There's no one else to vote for them. And whilst Reform UK's politicians, specifically in Reform UK, are very rich, very wealthy, bankers, traders, property tycoons, right? Apart from Lee Anderson, who is Tory and Labour defector. He's not really part of the Reform UK kind of central committee, really, which is mostly made up of Farage and Tice. These are very wealthy people, very, very wealthy, posh, upper school, private school people, or upper class private school people. But the membership of Reform UK is totally different. And Nigel Farage, to his credit, as much as I don't like to give it, at least he tries to speak to real people's concerns in a way that people like Kemi Badenoch just can't do, you know? The actual membership is mostly comprised of people who are from poor or working class backgrounds, right? Now, that's not to say they're not like asset rich. The Reform UK's membership leans very heavily to the old generation, like the 50 to 65 age bracket is kind of peak reform, you know? So a lot of these people have mortgages, have housing wealth, probably have better paid jobs than most working people in this country, because most working people in this country are between the ages of 18 and 50, and those people will vote left wing. They vote Labour, they vote Lib Dem, they vote Green. Whereas when it comes to the older generations, 50 plus, they're more likely to vote right wing. But it's that specific demographic of people who are still working, but are old enough to have housing wealth and things like that, got burnt by Liz Truss, and who are a lot more kind of socially conservative. These are still part of the working classes more historically, and they are part of the Reform membership, and they do understand people's concerns. They do understand the things that are broadly frustrating people in a time of decline. So this is why the Tories will not be able to capitalise on the farcical nature of Reform UK, is because they have no route to being victorious. Posh people, the nouveau riche people, the more well-off people in this country are more kind of socially liberal. They're voting Lib Dem, they're voting Labour. And Labour now are the parties of the high earning, you know? The Tories used to be kind of the party of the low-earning but retired people who are a little bit racist, and now they all vote Reform because the Tories proved that they were out of touch because it was too aristocratic. Right? Boris Johnson almost kind of solved that aristocracy problem that turned people away from the Tories, and they incinerated it over the pandemic, you know? Exactly. Like, you're absolutely right, Ben. Like, Tories saying things like voters want policies composed with a pen around a table, not thought up in a pint in a pub, about why voters will pick them over Reform, it is incredibly out of touch. You're absolutely right, Ben, for those kind of things to be said. And it's exactly why there is no route There is no route for the Tories to come back. And everyone who's trying to say that Reform UK's poor governance will cost them in the election doesn't understand broadly why Tories are failing. Now, maybe Labour will be the beneficiaries of reform being seen as unserious, but it won't be the Tories. It will not be the Tories in the slightest. It cannot be, and there is no route for them to have a political base in the future. It just doesn't exist. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership. It's just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.